Connecticut opera singer who rammed through Mar-A-Lago security blockade and narrowly escaped Secret Service bullets in January 2020 is found not guilty by reason of insanity. Hannah Romhild, 32, was found not guilty by reason of insanity on Tuesday. Her attorney said she had a history of mental illness and had stopped taking her medication before she drove through the Mar-A-Lago security blockade. She must undergo psychiatric treatment and counseling and take medications with monthly blood tests to confirm compliance. She pulled her rented Jeep into the parking lot of the Breakers, a luxury hotel, and began dancing on her car and making obscene gestures. She led police on a dangerous chase where police and Secret Service fired at her vehicle as she swerved checkpoints. She then drove to the airport to pick up her mother, before being arrested at a nearby motel. So I don't know if this lady was actually motivated by anything political, but seeing stories like this, I have to wonder. I was on Twitter and I saw some people making posts about how their therapist had said this, that, or otherwise. And I thought to myself, it's kind of weird that all of these like Democrat personalities have therapists, right? Is there something to this that people with Trump derangement syndrome, they need someone to help them think properly, be it or maybe a medication to help them think properly? Or
I think when you live in the military industrial complex in the empire, the heart of the empire, it's hard not to go crazy. Particularly when I lived in LA for like 8-9 years, I thought I needed a therapist. It wasn't until I started speaking my mind on the internet fluidly daily, Monday through Friday, that I stopped feeling the need to look outside for help, because I'm finding it here within myself, or at least in this table conversation.
Yeah, if you live in major city areas, the likelihood of you having mental health issues actually goes up dramatically compared to the suburbs. But with this particular story, who said it doesn't pay to be crazy, right? I mean, she got off, had all of her charges dropped. But on a serious note, there is a mental health crisis that this country is dealing with that is getting worse by the day. And there has been a lot of circumstantial evidence suggesting that it's because of social media use. Again, circumstantial evidence, correlation does not prove causation, but I think it's fair to say a lot of people are losing their marbles, losing their minds. There's a lot of doctors easily prescribing SSRIs, easily prescribing addictive painkillers to individuals that have an effect on their life. You want early treatment for COVID? No. Painkillers, SSRIs, poop, you're going to get it right away, which is absolutely crazy with how our medical institution is run today.
Dana White brought that up.
Yeah.
You know, he's at a press conference and he was like, I bet I can get these pain pills before I can get monoclonal antibodies.
Yep.
But the other thing, too, is we were talking about with CNN when I think it was like Brian Stelter, he was like, the trauma of January 6th, the journalist's trauma. Like they're sitting in an air-conditioned building in New York City. They're nowhere near the Capitol and they're experiencing trauma. Well, look at this story from Vox back in 2021. People are not okay. The mental health impact of the Trump era. Yo, I got a solution. It's not therapy. It's not medication. It's turning off the computer. It's turning off the monitor screen and going and like, I don't know, smelling flowers or something.
Turn off the boob tube.
Yeah.
Like turn off the TV. Turn off the fear mongering. When you look at what the corporate media feeds into people's minds, it is absolute trash and garbage. It is some of the most destructive, negative, low vibrational thinking that you could have in your existence jammed down your throat by Dr. Fauci, by Anderson Cooper, by all these smear merchants saying breaking news, fear mongering. You're supposed to be afraid because of this today. You're supposed to give up your rights because of this today. You're supposed to live in your pod, eat the bugs, be in the metaverse because it is good for you. And then people are following those orders, doing what they're told, and they're learning that they're miserable. Gee, I wonder why.
Well, I don't think there's anything wrong with therapy whatsoever. I think, and this might be a controversial opinion, but I don't think there's anything even wrong with being emotional. I know there's a big backlash against the left because they're so emotional. I would argue they are emotional, but it's unmitigated reactive emotion. Being human, you're going to have emotions, but I think the issue here is really that people don't have a container to hold their emotions, and therefore they act out in ways like this, and you end up with chaos all over the place. In fact, I think the solution to that is to be more comfortable with emotion, to be able to better feel it and hold space for yourself and, of course, others. But I think it's people's inability to do that leads to this chaos over emotional reaction.
Like pharmaceutical drugs? Like, what do you pinpoint as the reason why people are having a difficult time with their emotions right now?
I mean, I think people have always struggled with emotions. Like, to be human is to suffer. And this is sort of a Buddhist belief. But I mean, who hasn't suffered? Who hasn't felt difficult emotions? I think it's people's tendency to want to avoid the discomfort by, say, taking pills. And I'm not saying it's never appropriate to take pills if you have a mental health condition. I don't know your experience. I don't know why you would be on them, but I think obviously they're overprescribed. And I think that's ultimately an attempt by people and the providers to just numb it out instead of just building the inner resources to be able to sit with it.
And there's a ton of stuff in our society that incentivizes avoiding feeling, avoiding expressing your emotions, avoiding dealing with any kind of hardship or any kind of hard truth realities, as they're giving everyone medals, as they're congratulating everyone and denying them the basic truth of this world, that it is difficult, it is hard, it's not fair, life will never be fair, but these people are told it's always going to be fair, everything's going to be fine, you're going to get a trophy just by participating, and they're realizing, holy crap, the real world doesn't work that way. They're having a big reality check. They don't know how to deal with those emotions. They go online and they're consumed by the algorithms that control them, or by other adult content, especially young children are doing this, that they shouldn't be watching, that rewires their brain to be working in such negative, horrible ways that creates destructive relationships and disharmony in people's personal lives.
I think a lot of people over the past 7 years, since the start of the media's obsession with Trump, have been dealing with an ever-shifting news landscape that keeps changing its opinions and mocking people when they don't know exactly what the new narrative is. So if you take a look at, Joe Biden comes out and he says, if you get the vaccine, this is Joe Biden saying this, it's going to stop the spread of COVID, paraphrasing. Now, that's not true. Today they say it will reduce the severity of symptoms, but there's a major shift. So if you're somebody who's you're an accountant, you don't watch the news all day, every day. You see this story and you're like, okay, I see the president speaking. The news changes. And then you see the news again a week later and it's a 180 from where they were. And now you're sitting there saying, has anyone noticed this? You're thinking to yourself, something doesn't make sense. And then you go to someone or you go online and you post this seems strange to me. And what happens? They attack you for it. You get attacked, you get insulted, you get smeared. I think this is driving people insane. It's making people insane. You look at the news about Trump and the media lies every single day and it's escalating and getting worse and worse and all the lies. And they've still been lying about the guy, even though it's been, a year or a little bit longer than a year since he was in the office, or just about a year since he was in office. They keep lying, but you can't have these different things be true at the same time. But if you try and speak out, you'll be attacked for it.
Seems like there's three types of insanity. There's the people that believe the narrative shift without questioning it. That's a type of insanity, just going with the flow. Then there's the people that question the change in the narrative and call it out and get called insane. And then they start to go insane because they're like, why am I being attacked for questioning this? Then there's the people that see it all and think it's all crazy. Those people are just considered insane. That's kind of where I'm at anyway.
I mean, I tweet about this stuff and I actually have prominent politically homeless journalists responding to me saying well, the new narrative is this, particularly talking about vaccines. Here's the new narrative. And I'm like, how did we shift in 3 months dramatically on whatever the narrative is currently? I will not be gaslit. Sorry. I don't care. And so I think what happens is when you have people like this woman, she goes insane. I mean, granted, she was on meds, got off her meds, that I get. But there are a lot of people like this that are angry and insane. And it's because how do you vent your frustrations with an ever-changing world? You have a worldview, but it's not solidified because people keep changing and lying. I think Yuri Bezmenov talks about this, demoralization. Yes. Eventually, people are just like, I can't tell what's real anymore because the news is changing what they said a month ago, and then they drive a car through a checkpoint screaming and dancing and making obscene gestures because their brains erupt.
Yep. In a sick society, mental illness is a byproduct of it. And someone said today, and I tweeted this officially, saying that the bankers will ensure that we stay in debt. The pharmaceutical companies will ensure that we stay sick. The weapons manufacturers will ensure that we keep going to war. The media will ensure we are prevented from knowing the truth. The government will ensure all of this is done legally. And I think we're living in this kind of society that has almost every step that people take in it set for them as a trap that benefits only the ruling elites and creates mass human suffering for everyone else. Sorry, I cut you off, Carey.
That's okay. No, I was just to speak to the gaslighting, especially when it comes to the media. Let's just say that everything they report now is completely accurate and true and vetted, and they're being completely honest. Even then, given their decades, if not longer, track record of blatantly lying, of blatantly peddling government narratives, you still, how are you going to be angry at someone for not trusting them? Even if they were telling the truth right now, because of the history, how could you possibly shame someone for having hesitations?
I think it's because you're showing that you're free. You've exited the cave where the silhouettes are dancing. And Some of these people are aware they're being lied to, and they don't have the courage to do what you've done. So they would rather stand with the mob and say no, right? Crabs in a bucket.
Yes.
They're going to pull you back in, attack you. But I'll tell you this, man. I don't remember the exact quote from Breitbart that has been brought up several times. Something about like, go towards the fire. On the other side is freedom. It was something like that.
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly. But what I was told, it was explained to me, is that everybody is standing around and there's this wall of fire. They're terrified and they're told by everyone around you, don't go near it. It's bad. And some people say, I'm gonna run and jump through it. And on the other side, it's a party. It's a beach. There's the ocean. There's food. And they're like, you made it out. Congratulations. And on the other side is freedom. And there are people trapped inside, scared to come out and find that, man, it's freeing, right? The funny thing about this, there was this post that went viral during Trump's first campaign. And it was someone took a coming out story about a guy who was gay. And they changed gay to Trump supporter. And it was funny because it went viral because all the Trump supporters were like, wow, this resonates with me. Because the person was saying things like, I wasn't being true to myself. I was hiding who I was. I was scared that if I told people the truth about what I thought and what I felt, they would attack me and they would smear me. And then it ended up getting picked up because Trump supporters resonated with it when it was applied to their views. I think that was a big thing that the internet helped make. It's one of the reasons why censorship is so big. It's one of the reasons why they're trying to ban everybody, because community is important to tell you. When you hear that voice on the other side of the wall of flame telling you, hey, man, we're all chilling. It's fine. Just jump through and like we're partying. And then people go for it. And they're like, this is so much better. I don't have to freak out. It's not confusing anymore. I don't have to worry about those people being attacked. There's a community. We'll support each other. But for the people who are trapped inside the matrix, it's terrifying.
Interesting. Your metaphor goes right up along mine. Whereas if the government was like an abusive father in a relationship and like beating up the kids, you and your siblings, and then one night there's a fire in the house and the dad's like, come on, we got to get out. And you're like, no, I don't trust you. You've been abusive. And your siblings are like, dude, it's an emergency. COVID in this metaphor. It's an emergency. We have to listen to the abusive guy, even though we don't want to because he's the authority. But then you realize the flames aren't hot. I mean, that's along with your metaphor. It's an elusive. It seems to be an elusive emergency.
It's a difficult analogy. I mean, I think COVID is nasty, right? I know
COVID is nasty, but the reaction to COVID is insane. I got it really bad. COVID's nasty, man.
Yeah, Ian and I had COVID like comparably bad.
Yeah, you almost died, both of you.
Well,
we were both.
It was
just
tough,
like,
too early to tell.
Yeah.
4 days in of no treatment, and I was like, I'm ready to try something.
Got to do something.
I called the hospital.
Yeah.
That's how bad I had it. And I'm like, it's seriously bad. But you're right. The response has been insane. But more importantly, I'm reading the media narratives on social media, and it's just, I'm sorry, man. People are insane. They're insane. I'm sorry. If you know that the narrative is bunk on a lot of this stuff, on policy, especially on mandates, but you keep just agreeing with whatever it is Fauci says next, even though if we were to play every soundbite from every interview, it would be the most nonsensical garbage you've ever heard. If you're going to go along with that, you are willfully lying. You are nuts.
Yeah, so I was talking about this on the way home last night, and we came up with the conclusion that it's probably that they have too much sunk into this. This is very much a sunk cost fallacy application because they've wrapped their whole identity into following the leader and to, I guess, for lack of a better expression, following this mass formation psychosis thing where they have one leader. It's very scary. It's very much Crisis in Leviathan where they have this big, terrifying emergency and this lovely government leadership is going to come and show them exactly what to do. They don't really have, because they lack community. They lack their families, they lack their churches, whatever it used to be. They're like, I have to follow someone. I don't really even have any friends, which I think is part of the reason that they need some form of therapy, even when they may not necessarily, just because they lack friends and any kind of social life. And they end up being like, okay, I can't change my views. I have too much invested in this. I can't change my mind. This has to be true, or else what am I standing for?
Well, if you've invested years into this,
right?
And now, you're starting to recognize that Fauci has flip-flopped every day nonstop. Yeah. I feel like people's brains are just like, at this point, just a mishmash of broken reality.
I get like war weariness from the insanity of 21 years of conquest of war and pharmaceuticals making people psychotic. I'm interested to know your perception on this over the last, I don't know, how long you were with Anna Media, like a decade ago, right?
I started 2014 and we were banned in 2018.
Were you in journalism before that?
No.
Okay. What was your observation of people going I don't even know if you think people have gone crazy, but people's mental state over the last decade.
Yeah, I think there's always been issues. I think the people really losing it now, it didn't just come out of nowhere. They probably already had struggles and things they were dealing with, and then it became much more exacerbated. Like, I think if you're a generally well-grounded person, which I don't know how common that is, but I think in general, if you have inner resources, you might be frustrated, you might be scared, but I don't think you can go to the spiral some people have fallen into, because I really see it gets to the point where people are, you can cite CDC data and people will still tell you you're crazy and you're selfish and you're propagandized, and you're literally citing their authority, and it can't even register for them.
Steven Crowder got a strike on YouTube for citing the CDC.
Right.
And so we've talked about that. When it comes to the modern vaccine narrative, I'm just like, I don't even know what YouTube's rules are at this point, because I listen to Dr. Fauci and I'm like, well, if I say that, YouTube bans us because YouTube says you can't say that, but Fauci's saying it. So I'm like, I don't even know at this point. The pressure is reaching that point where, we're saying like, listen, we want to be reasonable people. We want to talk about what's going on. But when YouTube outright says you cannot discuss things that they themselves discuss or CNN discusses, they give Crowder a strike over it. I'm like, yo, you're asking for people for their brains to just explode, because you're backing people into a corner, and sooner or later they're going to say, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore.
Yep.
It's true. It's like if YouTube were I don't like the metaphor sword fight, but if YouTube, and then they give you like a plastic sword because you're not allowed to say the stuff they say. So like, how fun is that? I mean, it's life-threatening.
So
I'm not going to play.
Sorry, Michael Knowles made the observation the other day that it doesn't matter what you say, it matters who says it.
Right.
Steven Crowder says it, he's gone. Fauci says it, he's fine. Doesn't matter. Anyone
Bill
else
Gates.
Yeah, exactly.
Not a doctor.
Yeah, not a
Joe
doctor.
Rogan. Also not a doctor.
Exactly.
I don't like the witch
Doesn't
hunt.
matter.
Like, I saw somebody get banned, I think Carl Benjamin, off of somebody else's. So like, what'll happen is that rather than target the channel that makes the bannable offense, they target the individual that started the channel. So then if they start a new channel with a completely different theme, they'll whack-a-mole it. Doesn't make any sense. The channel hasn't banned any terms and conditions.
Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to watch live, you can check out this channel Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Now, don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, and if you want more unfiltered and uncensored content with all of these guests, go to timcast.com and become a member. All of these guests you know and love in exclusive segments on our website where we are unrestricted in what we talk about, so you'll definitely not want to miss it. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you all next time.